Welcome everybody to today's session looking at meaningful PEPs, and I'm presenting today with Steph Pritchard. My name's Sue Denholm and we're the assistant heads of the virtual school for Nottinghamshire County Council. So today's session we're going to have a look at what's changed over the last 12 months. We're going to be also looking at our statutory expectations, the fact that Ofsted has highlighted our area as PEPs to improve, and also to make sure everybody has a understanding of what good and strengths-based PEPs look like and what our roles and responsibilities will be to make sure that that happens. So what has changed? So we had new legislation in 2018 that has moved our statutory responsibility to review our children's personal education plans 3 times a year, so in effect termly. We are also charged with having a quality assurance process, and one that is improved from what we were doing previously. So we have been working with our partners to have a clear quality assurance process. We have also created a PEP guidance to support everybody who will be undertaking the roles as identified for personal education planning. The paperwork itself has also been changed to make sure it's strengths-based and that it's increasingly meaningful for our children and young people, as well as understanding for social workers and education to be part of this. And we're making sure that PEPs are age and phase appropriate. So from early years all the way through to our post-16 pupils and young people, so 16 to 18 years old. All of our PEP documents and the guidance and everything that we talk about today are all stored on our virtual school website, which there will be links on this presentation, but also you can just Google Nottinghamshire County Council's virtual school and you will find us there on the public website or the intranet. So let's have a look what we know nationally. So the importance of personal education plans is because our children are not doing and continue to not do as well as those children that are not in care. So you can just see from this slide that children who are looked after are the green bar. And you can see that from the children that we are measured against, which children not in care, we are a long way behind for our children's outcomes, both at the end of their primary education, Key Stage 2, and also at the end of their secondary education, which is Key Stage 4. So we're a long way behind those children who are not in care. And we know that there are lots of reasons for that. But what we do know is coming into care does not damage your education. There are plenty of opportunities for us to make a difference. But this is the reason, this slide shows the reason why quality personal education planning needs to be in place. So this is a collective statutory duty. So we're not doing this alone. There is 2 sets of legislation promoting the education of looked after children and previously looked after children, which is our legislation for the local authority. But also schools have legislation. So there is a statutory role, that is the designated teacher for looked after and previously looked after children, which are in education settings. So jointly, collectively, we must fulfill our duty to make sure that personal education planning can be as the best it can be. So we have created our Nottinghamshire guidance. This is to make sure everybody's roles and responsibilities are clear. We can co-constructed this with a number of partners, including children's social care. We had representations from all of the teams across children's social care to produce this guidance, to make sure that we are producing consistent and good quality personal education plans. The documents, as I've already noted, is all stored on our virtual school website. So, and you can see there's a link here on this page that there is a section on our website that holds our documents. And we've tried to make sure that these documents are as clear and as simple as they can possibly be. So a lot of the PEP documentation will be consistent. We'll be showing you examples shortly. However, the structure will be front page, will be consistent from age and phase, and so will the young person's information, and right the way through to education, smart targets. All of these will look similar on each one of the documentations, even though they are age and phase responsibility, age and phase appropriate. The attainment and progress section is the key education side, and again that will be age and phase. So our responsibilities in pre-populating information. So there are certain sections that will be pre-populated that will give plenty of time in the meeting to have the quality discussions for the planning and target setting. So we've created this diagram that shows who will be responsible for completing which section and by when. So you can see timescales. So social workers will be responsible for arranging the dates with foster carers or residential home workers, schools or other relevant professionals, and that's going to be at least 3 weeks prior to that meeting. And then you can see how the document goes to and from the various people to ensure that they are pre-populating, ready for the meeting. So this again is on our website, so you'll be able to see your timescales for setting up the meeting. Because we're trying to ensure that each meeting is of quality and consistency to meet each child's needs, we have created a standard meeting agenda, again, co-constructed with all parties. So each agenda will give everybody who is there a clear structure to follow. And the documentation follows this agenda. And this agenda is also included in the documentation. So there's no need to be circulating this separately. It is all part of the documentation for each child. So you can see by following that, you'll be able to get a quality meeting in place. So we've created some exemplar pre-populated personal education documents for people to refer to. Again, all going to be on the website, so you'll be able to pick these examples up and use these to ensure that everybody is able to understand what is required and the quality that is required. So this is children's social care part of the pre-population. And as you can see, it's the child and young person's information, which of course children's social care will hold. So that is the example of that section 1. The PEP meeting, which is around the young person's voice, the part of the meeting which is around the young person's voice, this is really important. What we are starting to pick up from the quality assurance processes that we have begun this academic year is that the children and young person's voice needs to be very strongly heard, and it's still an area that we need to improve on. And it may be that we have to be inventive on how we collect that voice from our young person. They may not want to be at the meeting, so it's picking a trusted adult or a time where that young person or child can feed their hopes, wishes, wants, desires in order to achieve their hopes, dreams and future goals. So it's really important that we do this appropriately. This is where those aspirations can be really worked upon. So this example we've pulled from using the quality assurance processes we've been doing to make sure that we are giving you really good examples of what the child's voice should look like to inform the future planning. So part of, as you've seen, part of the responsibilities is also of pre-population is also on the education setting side. So here is an example for the section 2 education information of the expectations we would have of the setting to be completing their aspects of the documentation. Again, all stored on the website, so you can refer back to these examples. Also, the attainment and progress sections are pre-populated, ready for the meeting by the education setting. So again, this is an example for, I think this is the primary one. There will be examples for secondary, etc., all on the website, so you'll be able to refer back to what the expectation is. The strengths and needs section of the personal education plan is really important. We have to be reflecting the strengths of our young person, but equally those areas where they might need support, and who's going to be responsible for supporting those needs and what are they going to do, so that it can be regularly reviewed to make sure that what we're putting in place is helping and supporting our young person to move through the ages and phases. The SMART targets we are recognising is causing some areas of concern, that it's not always of a quality that we are expecting, and we do support schools with reflecting on whether their SMART target setting is of a quality standard. So, but what we've created is again an exemplar of what a SMART target should actually look like. These targets are really important because this is going to really demonstrate the progress our children and young people are making. So this will be there for everybody to refer to, because the website is available to all concerned, so schools, foster carers, the public, and yourselves. So this is a really useful exemplar to be referring back to around SMART targets. The next section is achievements and extracurricular and transition. It's really, really important that we recognise our children and young people's achievements, and that doesn't matter how small or how amazing they might be. It's very important that we are recognising that, and also giving our children and young people those extra opportunities around those extracurricular or additional activities that education can offer. So who's going to be responsible for making sure that those opportunities are enacted, can be recorded, so they can be checked whether they are happening for our young people and they're able to be enhancing their opportunities that can be on offer and their experience of education. And clearly transition planning is very important. There are times of education where there is big changes, for instance, infant to junior, junior to secondary, secondary beyond to post 16. So it's really important we are thinking about transition at these regular points. So the next section then will be around our PEPs for children and young people who are post 16 and beyond. And I'll hand over to Steph for this bit.
Okay, so as Sue said, these PEPs are for children aged 16 to 18, and it is referred to as the EAPEP, which stands for Employability Assessment Personal Education Plan. Very similar to the statutory school age expectations, these PEPs need to take place 3 times a year, so that works out as termly. They are for all looked after children who are 16 to 18 years old, and even if our young people are not in education, employment or training, it's still really important that they have a PEP 3 times a year. It may well be, as Sue mentioned, for the statutory school age PEP, if you've got a young person who is not particularly willing to engage in the PEP meeting itself, it's really, you might need to be quite creative around how you obtain their view, so the meeting can still take place and the PEP process still happens for them, but it might just need to be done slightly creatively. The EAPEP has a recording system to measure soft outcomes, and that works as a framework score, which I'll explain shortly. There's lots of opportunities to celebrate success in this PEP, as well as which includes small steps of progress. And as with the statutory school age PEP as well, it evokes aspiration. It should have the young person at the centre of the PEP, and there should be targets and actions to support the young person making progress. So here is, I think the first thing to acknowledge is that the post-16 PEP is on an Excel spreadsheet rather than a Word document. However, many of the principles and the processes are very similar, and the guidance reflects how the post-16 PEP should be carried out. The first tab on the post-16 PEP is the Framework Scores tab. That explains to you how you need to score each of the different skills and areas which are asked about in the assessment tool tab. They are, the scaling is 0 to 5, and again, this is just a way to measure soft outcomes. So for example, it might be timekeeping skills, and the young person, hopefully, we would slowly see over time that they're making progress. So this is an example of what the assessment tool tab looks like. This is an exemplar for a young person who is in the 16 to 18 cohort, very similar to the statutory school age PEP. This is section 1, which is the young person's information, that typically we would expect children's social care to be pre-populating prior to the meeting. As you can see at the bottom, there is a section for aspirations, hopes, dreams, and future goals. And again, we would really stress that this isn't just a word or a sentence, but there's quite a bit of detail about what the young person wants from their life as a whole, as well as their aspirations around careers, education and training. So further down on the assessment tool document, it moves on to section 2. This is around education activity, and this is the section if the young person is in a further education or education and training setting, we would hope that, and our expectation would be that the education setting completes this section. This is where you start to need to refer to the framework score that I talked about before. So as you can see at the top here, we're first of all looking at qualifications the young person has already achieved, and that will also come along with a score which can be found on the previous tab. Below, it then talks about what current courses the young person is on, and it would be the education setting who would be expected to complete whether they are on target or not. At the bottom of this slide, it talks about the support the young person needs in order to be successful. And their examples are the same as what can be found on the strengths and needs section of the statutory school age PEP. So that is around relationships, communication, executive functioning skills, preparing for adulthood, as well as mental health and emotional well-being. And there should be actions against each one that are for adults to support the young person's needs. As we keep moving down the document, we move on to employment skills and activities. This has been developed further for academic year 2021 to 22 to include a strengths section and then a needs section. As mentioned previously in the statutory school age PEP, needs need to have actions which adults are named, where there are named adults to support the young person's needs. The slight change for the post-16 is some of this is around skills for employment, so things like problem solving and time management. Again, each of these also comes up with a framework score, which can be found and how to identify which score the young person gets can be found on the tab mentioned previously. At the bottom, there's just a chart there that you can see that again is about preparing the young person for the next steps in their education and employment journey. Finally, at the bottom of the assessment tool tab for this post-16 PEP, it asks for additional details about what our young person's interests are, and again, how adults can be supporting them to develop them further. As with the statutory school age PEP, we then move on to SMART targets, and these can be found on the next tab, which is the summary tab. You will see the colourful boxes there are the overview, are the outcome of all of the framework scores that have been inputted in the assessment tool. You can use these to record an analysis and also identify some SMART targets. The analysis is really an opportunity to celebrate lots of successes, and even if a young person's Progress feels like really small steps. It's really important that those successes and any positive progress is recorded in this section here. Finally, at the very bottom, you can see that there are some agreed actions. So there should be a SMART target, and ideally the aim would be that the young person is able to achieve this SMART target by the time they have their next PEP the following term. Again, there should be actions where adults are named to support the young person in achieving the target. And this is where it also feels really important that the young person's voice is present, or at least it is shared with them afterwards if they're not willing to be part of their meeting, because we want them to be able to sign up to their targets as well as the adults signing up to support them. Finally, this is just a reminder or an update about our PEP Quality Assurance process. This process continues to evolve and develop, and there are a number of elements and layers to our quality assurance process now. And that includes a termly deep dive where we look at randomly selected PEPs, and that is done together as a collaborative process with representatives from the virtual school, children's social care and IROs. The most recent outcomes of the PEP QA process, the strengths were that, as you can see on the slide, section 1, which is the main section, children's social care, responsible for pre-populating, is usually completed, and needs were identified well for most of our young people. The things we need to develop further, as Sue mentioned earlier, are to ensure that the child and young person's voice really feels at the centre of the PEP, that it's recorded well and in detail. Even if the young person doesn't attend their PEP, it's really important that their voice is obtained beforehand and the PEP is fed back to them. And finally, as mentioned before, SMART targets. We need to work on our targets being smarter, so that they are achievable and measurable, and also that actions are for adults in order to support the young child to achieve their targets. Thank you very much for watching.